to do this, we should look at what the standard paradigm is regarding other people. And it's so baked into how we communicate and how society works and all the rest of it that it's tricky to see this as a paradigm. But it is a paradigm, and it's possible to realize that it's a paradigm and that reality is actually more nuanced than this paradigm might pretend it to be. So what is the paradigm that we usually have regarding other people? First of all, that other people are not us. So we think, I am me, I have my name, I'm Ross, and I have my body and I have my mind. And then my partner, she's called something else, and she has her body and she has her mind. And then my friends over here, they all have their names and they all have their own minds and their own bodies. And my family the same, everyone, and this extends to the entire world. We think that other people they are not us fundamentally, right? Now, that might just seem so obvious that you wonder, well, first of all, how can you question that? And second of all, why even name it? Because it just seems so obvious. Except, if you've never questioned it, it might seem obvious, but if you start to question it, you might realize that it's not quite as cut and dry as it may seem. At the end of the day, if you've never asked yourself, what does it actually mean to be you existentially? And I don't mean in terms of your personality. I mean in terms of, if you say you have a mind, if you say you are conscious, and if you say you have a body, what on earth does that mean? Like, you have a body. Who has a body? If there's something apart from you that has a body, what is that you? If there's something apart from you that has a mind that is apparently your mind, then what is that you? You see, so even a sentence like, I have a mind and I have my body, what does that mean? Like, who is the you then? And how does that, if that you is different from your body, then what does that mean about other people? You see, so the way we use language and the way we assume things, we have to look very closely at that and question these things, because they might not be as simple as we think. We also assume that other people have their own independent existence. And what I mean by this is that they have their own experiences independent of you. So if you imagine a friend right now, you imagine what your friend is doing, it seems like they are literally experiencing that as you are experiencing this moment. So you might be sitting listening to this podcast right now, and I might be saying, imagine a friend of yours. What is this friend of yours doing right now? And you might imagine them at home. You might imagine them reading a book. You might imagine them listening to deep psychology. If they are, then that's fantastic. You might imagine them having dinner, whatever. So you think they have an independent existence of yours, because no matter what you are doing, they are doing something else, and what you are doing doesn't obviously impact. I mean, it can, but in this case, it has no impact what you're doing on what they're doing, right? So that's part of the standard paradigm about how we look at other people. And again, this might seem so obvious that you might be wondering why we're questioning it, but that's exactly why I'm questioning it, because it's a paradigm and it's problematic. We'll get to that though. Third, their experience is rendered by their own brain independently of your own. So this kind of just takes the previous point to the next level. It's not only that we believe other people have their own independent experiences, it's that we've got a sort of nice neurological explanation for it, which is that, well, when we have experiences, the brain lights up in certain ways, and when I look at something, my neural networks light up in one way. When I taste something, it lights up in another way. When I have when I have a scary experience, maybe my amygdala lights up. When I have a pleasant experience, maybe my brain releases cortisol. So we have all this neurobiology behind it. Now, I'm not going to question that in this episode because it would just be getting into a topic that isn't exactly what we're talking about. But what I'm basically saying is that we seem to have, like, not only do we assume independent existence, like independent experiences of other people, we assume that there is a neurological basis for it, right? And that is problematic as well. And we might get into why that is. I just want you to notice that is there. So it's not just that you assume that psychologically and experientially they have their own experience. You might say, well, Ross, neurologically we know that brain activity occurs and we know that people have their own bodies and all of this stuff, you see. So this gives you like a second explanation behind the first one. Fourth, their experience is analogous to yours. So what do I mean by this? Imagine you're sitting next to a friend and there is a glass between you, on the table between you, and you're both looking at the glass. What you're going to assume is that they're basically seeing the same as you, but from their own perspective. So they're seeing the glass, but they're seeing it from their own perspective. And they're seeing the same surround that you're seeing, but just from their perspective. And if you went and sat where they were sitting, you would also see it from their perspective, right? So I don't exactly know what the name for this is, but just let's call it the experience is analogous. That if you believe someone to be having a certain experience, you can go in and have that same experience as they can. If someone goes on holiday somewhere, you can go on the same holiday and you'll have pretty much the same experiences as they will. You'll see the same places, and it'll be, you'll go to this, go and see this place, and you'll be able to tell them about it, and they'll say the same, and they'll sort of, it's like a continuity and a repeatability. In summary, we could summarize these 4 principles of this standard paradigm that we have as others are separate from us and they're independent from us. So they're separate because, my body and mind ends sort of where my body ends, and they're independent because they're all having their own experiences separate from me.